Welcome to Made in Atlanta. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. Made in Atlanta is a special series of podcasts brought to you from Small Biz Club. Today, I am so excited to be joined in the studio by a guy named Leroy Hite. He is the CEO and founder of Cutting Edge Firewood. And if you're in Atlanta, you have seen his signs and everything else that he does. So, Leroy, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So tell me about what your business does.
So we are the world's first fancy firewood company, which is the kind of the low level of putting it. But really, so we offer luxury firewood and cooking wood and pizza wood products.
Okay. Well, my first experience with you, and I think I saw an Instagram ad, maybe.
Wonderful.
And I had people coming to the house like that weekend. I think it was like Friday. And so I went and ordered, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get these by Sunday or whatever. The next morning at 9 a.m. And I think I ordered them at 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I had them on my front porch, whatever. And then like a week later, you sent a handwritten note thanking me for the purchase. So I was like, this is my favorite person ever. And so then if you go around Atlanta, you have these round signs that match to your logo, and they're like everywhere. You'll pull out of a Publix and there's a sign and there's whatever. So I was like, if we're going to do a podcast about marketing and local marketing, I got to have this guy on. So,
Absolutely.
So tell me about like, how the heck did you know how to do all those things? Do you come from a marketing background? Did you just read a book? Like what happened?
Trial and error.
Okay.
And I'm pretty good at knowing when something's a good idea whenever I see it.
Yeah.
With the signs in particular, you know, a lot of firewood companies will put out a yard sign. It's just usually handwritten and looks terrible.
Right.
And so we actually went through a few iterations of it. And then I saw somebody said, hey, you should just make it really big so people see it. And I was like, and you know what? We could just make it just the logo.
Just the logo.
You know, there's no such thing as an overnight success, but that one idea was about as close to an overnight success as you get. I went from when I would meet somebody and they'd ask what I did for a living and I'd say I owned a firewood company and they would change the subject quickly to, oh my goodness, you're the guy, the signs everywhere, just like over a couple of months.
Well, and people keep them in their yard at their house. You drive by and they have their yard. They have this sign in their yard.
I've had a lot of parents tell me that their kids play a game where they see who can find the most cutting edge firewood signs.
That's amazing.
As they're driving around. So,
okay, so take me back because I'm so curious because like I really did just run into you, and then all of a sudden it felt like you were everywhere, which is ultimately every small business owner's dream. You know, they open up their business and then they got to get that message out.
Yep.
And you went from someone I had never heard of to someone I see everywhere. In fact, you're kind of like this LinkedIn enigma for me. So I was like, can I get you come be on the podcast with me? So how did you decide to start this? Like, have you just always been into firewood, or did you do something else?
Man, I think I might have chosen the hardest thing to do, which most people are like, oh, it's firewood. How difficult could it be? But it's the hardest thing to do to change is people's preconceptions. And everybody's preconception about firewood is that a guy without all his teeth is going to show up and the wood's going to be rotten and have mold and they're going to have a really hard time burning it. So when I was in college, went to Barry and they had an entrepreneurial program. And so I started a few different businesses, and a couple of buddies of mine asked me to help them start a firewood company. And long story short, did a year in school and a year after, actually won the bid for Kroger for the entire Southeast before we graduated.
Oh, wow.
Had no idea what we were doing or getting ourselves into. But the firewood industry at the time was you would get a username and password, log in, and whoever put the lowest number in won the bid.
Wow. For
the entire account, which is what we did.
Wow.
It went horribly, but
you learned a lot, right?
But that kind of gave me what has grown into, this is the vision now, but I just got everybody will say like, you see the tip of the iceberg and it's just, it it lit the ember of opportunity, pun intended.
Yeah.
And kind of what I saw, what it's grown into is a fire is like a beautiful sunset. There is no one on earth that dislikes it. It's unifying, it's primal, universal. Take a 95-year-old man from Ethiopia or a 3-year-old girl from Georgia. They will guaranteed both sit in front of the fire, enjoy it. After a stressful day, I can take a whiskey, sit in front of the fire, stress level goes down, think deep thoughts. My wife can come out. All of a sudden it's romantic. My daughters can come out and make s'mores and memories they'll have for a lifetime. Teenagers will put their phones down and talk to their parents around the fire.
Yeah.
And then I make incredible steaks, pizza, barbecue over our cooking wood. And that's all on one side. I love the experience side of it. But on the other side, before we got into it, I kind of spoke to it. The industry standard was wood would sit outside for 12 months, literally rot, and have mushrooms growing out of it. And the business strategy, the branding, the customer service, and that overall customer experience matched the product quality of rotting wood. And we're still on the journey because I want it to become a national lifestyle brand. We've kind of taken, to compare it to another industry, water from getting it out of the stream.
Yeah.
Skip the tap water, skip the Dasani, and just went straight to liquid death of branding, if that, you know.
You see, I'd say liquid death are like the high-end glass bottles, right?
Yes.
Like the ones where you're like, that is like some nice. Because when that showed up on my doorstep, right, it was this box that showed up, and it's like the firewood was in there. There was a starter kit. It's in a box. Like it came in a box, right? So fully unexpected, and so fully unexpected because I was on the couch. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And I put that order in. I'm like, yeah, I might see it before the party. I might not. And I think I'll go to Kroger if I not, right? And then that very next morning, it was just sitting there. So you guys did an amazing job on the customer service side.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And so did you start, because I now see you'll go to like restaurants, and I think up at Avalon, there may be one up there. There's like a fire pit right next to the valet, and you guys... I know this because the branding is everywhere. So what was first for you? Like, I mean, you tried the Kroger experience.
Yeah, I tried that. Went and worked at Chick-fil-A for a while after we shut that firewood business down. Thought about becoming an operator. Wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Great business. Met my wife there in high school.
Yeah.
Another story for another day.
Yeah.
And then I worked at Enterprise, ran a car for 3 years, got a lot of good experience. I kind of call it business boot camp.
Yeah.
And then got a job in downtown Atlanta and worked there for 2 months. It's kind of a long story, but during that time, I had the firewood in the back of my mind, and I was like, dear God, please get this out of my head and let me focus on my career.
I just don't want to do this again.
Fancy firewood that's a terrible idea. Like, but it would not go away. 2 months in, it's funny because I had a 93 Geo Prism, if you remember those.
Yes. I think I saw a Geo this week. I think I saw a Geo Metro this weekend. Yeah.
No way. It's still running.
Yeah, right.
And it had 266,000 miles on it. And my wife and I joke when it broke down that I would get a truck and start the firewood business on the side. Well, it broke down. That Saturday, wife went out of town, and I could not stop thinking about the firewood idea and even prayed about it. And by the end of the day, I was like, okay, I'm going to start this firewood business on the side. Went into work on Monday, and they actually fired me on the spot. And I was like, okay, apparently I'm going to do this full time.
Talk about being pushed fully in.
That's right. Dived in, and it was scary. Basically maxed out like 10 credit cards, got a personal loan, and just, it's funny, the few years following that, I'd have people come up to me and give me Dave Ramsey books.
That's not how entrepreneurs work. Yeah. I'm reading a book. We're reading a book here called Grit, and it talks about entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are willing to take dramatic financial risks.
Yes. I like the book you're talking about too.
Yeah.
So that's one of our core values is grit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so you now you have a truck, and you're going to start delivering fancy firewood.
So I had a truck and a trailer, and kind of changed up how people did deliveries. Had what's called a Toro Dingo. It looks like a riding lawnmower, but you stand on the back of it and you can put forks on the front of it. And I would carry baskets of firewood. And instead of a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow where you would have to load up the truck, go to wherever you're delivering, deliver the wood, and then drive all the way back, I could do 8 deliveries in a 17, 18-hour day, which was terrible. But that's what I did for the first 4 years. I mean, my story is kind of a crazy one of spending a lot of time in fetal position and doing a lot of hard manual labor and just figuring out things the hard way.
So how old is the company?
11 years.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Wow. Because I'm trying to think it was 3 or 4 years ago that I really feel like you all of a sudden just appeared.
Yes, we'll have customers tell us, I was one of your first customers, and they'll be like, they ordered in December of 2020. And I'm like,
no, you ain't. Wrong.
7 years in.
Wrong. Okay. So was there a turning point? Was there something that you did that you're just, because that's the thing that we're trying to figure out here. So, and I'm assuming it was a marketing thing, but maybe it was something else. Maybe it was
there's a lot of moments. One was in 2014, I bought up they were kind of a competitor. They had terrible branding, but they had been around and had a nice customer list in 2014. And that doubled us or actually quadrupled us in size.
Okay.
So that was good. And then in 2019, we started shipping firewood across the country, made our first dollar outside of Georgia, got into cooking wood and started investing heavily in SEO.
Okay.
And we were the first mover in firewood or cooking wood on SEO. And then also in 2019, we started putting out our current yard signs.
Got it. Okay.
And
so it's kind of a combination of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
but talk to me about, you're talking about luxury firewood. And again, if you've never ordered it, you should, because you get this really nice box and whatever. Was that from the beginning, or when did you make the decision?
So
because you're branding a commodity product in a way that people are willing to spend more for it. It's an experience, the whole thing.
Yeah. So in 2017, I found myself in a position that the company was possibly going under, and I knew I needed cash to take it to the next level. I was pretty tired of going, and for the first 4 years when I arrived at the customer's house, it would take an average of 2 hours to do the delivery. And
now, were you selling because
I had it in baskets on a pallet.
Okay, yeah.
So it wasn't even in the racks.
Right. Okay.
And it was so we were a slightly innovative. I provided better customer service local firewood company.
Right.
And then I went to my wife and said, "Hey, babe, you're beautiful and wonderful, and I love you. And I know you're 8 months pregnant, and we have 2 little girls at home, but let's sell our house and invest it in the business." And so that's what we did, and we moved into a rental.
Yeah.
Did I mention I have the best wife in the world? And I invested that and kind of reinvented how to do deliveries. It had these racks made that are airbrushed, have a canvas cover, and got a patent on them. And the innovation really is that you can use a hand truck to move them. So we have all our delivery artisans have hand trucks that'll go up and down stairs and that are electric. And so we can put the rack anywhere. And so you order, we place the rack where you want it, and then when you reorder, we take the empty one and replace it with a full one.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so delivery went from 2 hours to about 15 minutes per delivery.
Wow.
And which allowed me to hire
and
other
efficient.
Exactly.
I like it. Yeah.
And so that's still a service that we offer in several cities in the Southeast. Particularly Nashville, Chattanooga, Greenville, Charlotte, and of course, all of North Georgia. That allowed us to grow, allowed me to hire people because it wasn't incredibly dangerous to deliver the firewood, and it didn't take 2 hours, and there was margin, and just kept trying to grow over the next several years.
Okay.
And then 19 I got into the cooking wood. 18 to 19 really started doing the boxes and the same day delivery on the boxes.
So that must have been when I was first using you, because I think it was before the pandemic, but it was like we were having a party, I think, for the company, and we have a big deck with the fire pit, and I was like, I keep seeing this guy on Instagram. I think it was Instagram. It probably was, because that's the place I learn about new things, you know. So, and then I don't know how to save them, so I take pictures of them and put them in my phone. And everybody tries to teach me, and I'm like, don't teach me. I'm good. I know how to do this. Stop. Just because that works for you, it doesn't for me. So, yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then did the signs and all that kind of stuff. So that's what's interesting for me, too, is getting those restaurants to trust you in this place, right? Because you've got to get in, and it feels like it'd probably be harder than maybe being the lowest bidder on the Kroger website.
For sure. For restaurants, they're really, for us, a marketing brand awareness play.
Yeah. Okay. And it's just like alcohol, alcohol brands, that's how they get in. If you can get on the shelf, then people will go to the store and buy it, and specifically you can get special drink, right? Like that. Yeah. Very similar. Yeah.
And that, in 2019, and then 2020 happened, and we exploded.
Yeah,
and
people were stuck at home,
and the yard signs were perfect because we had the brand awareness.
Yeah.
And so when people thought, "Oh my gosh, I got to get firewood," what's the name of that yard sign company?
Yeah,
and then they would, if they couldn't remember, they would drive down the street and they would see it and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah," and then they would buy from us.
Okay, so the secret to the yard signs. Yes. So do you have like yard sign elves running around just putting them out in random places?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I love it. And then you give one to like people and they decide to keep them in their yard forever.
I've had several. Well, it's funny. We've actually had, two things. One, I've actually had politicians say, "If you ever will lend me your yard side guy," because he knows exactly where to put
very strategic. You'll pull up and you're about to turn out of a major shopping center or whatever, and there's a sign.
There's a sign. Yeah. And people call us and say, "Hey, if y'all want to put a sign in our yard, you can," which at first I was kind of confused, and I was like, I think we've arrived because we're so prestigious that people like our brand that they want to show it off, even if they're not a customer.
That's it's amazing. It's a great story. And what's so good about it is it does show kind of packaging, marketing. It's a commodity product.
Yes.
Yet you have a high quality product. So it's a high quality commodity product, but it's really about how you're positioning it in the market, right?
Right. And with a marketing way of speaking about it is I say the customer experience is made up of three things when you're a B2C. Of course, product quality, customer service, but what most people don't think about is it is also your brand.
Yeah.
People enjoy using brands. If you Google Mercedes and click on pictures, the logo is very prominent in every single picture. Look up Nike bag.
Yeah.
You will look up Yeti. And how many times does Louis Vuitton need to be on that bag? The answer is yes.
That's hilarious.
And branding is part of the customer experience.
Well, and it's why, like a Yeti mug or whatever, you can buy another one, but are you gonna really? Or we have a Yeti bag that we got for Christmas. It is so over the top, right? Like we'll never destroy it. I think it'll be in the land.
Yeti is prominently on it.
Oh yeah, 100%. So everybody, we went to a friend trip a couple weeks ago, and they're like, we had this. All of our stuff was in this nice Yeti bag, right? Whatever.
Yep.
So you guys have done that. Picking new markets, how do you decide that you're going to pick a new market?
Yeah. So we ship to 48 states.
Okay.
So that makes it so everybody, is. And COVID really was the one that made that happen. We started it in 2019 and orders trickled in. And then when states started shutting down, we just got crazy busy. We do our deliveries in Charlotte and Nashville because they're pretty large cities that are relatively easy for us to drive to.
So, and then also I'm assuming you're looking for affluent communities as well, right?
Affluent, yes. Lots of people with some affluent areas. Correct.
Disposable money. Yeah.
Yep.
Fire pits in the backyard, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
On our Facebook page or Instagram page, people are like, why don't you just burn your money? And my response is always, no, it doesn't have nearly as good of aroma.
You see, what I love about the way you approach it is, people, I owned a research company for a period of time. And in research, the first thing people tell you is like, hey, would you do this thing? And they always tell you, well, it depends on what it would cost. That is complete BS.
Yeah, I love that.
If you value it enough, you will pay whatever for it.
Yes. And I like the Henry Ford quote, and I'll paraphrase, where people asked, he said that if he had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Yeah.
And asking customers questions and research absolutely can be helpful, but your customers aren't necessarily visionaries, and they're not going to.
You have to interpret what they're asking.
Correct.
Yeah, and know that. So there's convenience and cost people, and a convenience person will do things that are cost based in another way, so they can do the convenience thing, right?
Absolutely.
So in our last few minutes together, and I feel like I got to meet like an Atlanta, you're an Atlanta hero to me as a marketer. I was like, this is amazing. It just like you showed up, and it's all feels very much like you did a lot of guerrilla, type marketing, which is such a great way to bring a small business to market and to get people to notice it. What would be, because you've had one of those classic entrepreneurial stories. You're an overnight success, 10 years in the making. So if there's either something you could go back and tell your former self, or something you tell another small business owner across, specifically, let's say in that kind of marketing and getting those first customers, what's Leroy's advice? What's your sage advice?
Ooh. Marketing is, you have to continually try out new things. And it's not even just marketing. It's really, you just have to constantly be innovating. Grit is essential. You as an entrepreneur, something that kind of helped me out actually from the very beginning is supposedly generals in the ancient world would burn their ships after they sailed their soldiers. And that meant,
we're not going back.
We're not going back. We win or we die.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, as an entrepreneur, if you have a safety net when things get really, there was one time when I was in the fetal position from a Thursday to a Monday as a business owner that I had $12 in the bank account in the middle of summer. And if I'd had a safety net, I would have gone to it.
Right.
There's multiple times that would have happened. And so grit is absolutely essential. Another is what I say a lot, and all my employees can definitely quote this, is if you're comfortable, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying, even though it doesn't feel like it. And that is in any part of life. Like if you're sitting on the couch eating potatoes, obviously once that's not going to kill you. Right. But if that's your habit, it's not healthy.
Yeah. When I had someone talk about the concept of coasting, when a business coasts, the only way to coast is to go downhill.
Correct.
And so if your business is coasting, then you're on a slight decline. You may not feel it, but it's that kind of slow thing. And I have one last question. So the handwritten note, which is just the key, was that just an experiment? You try it, you're like, hey, and it's not like you wrote a short note either. You wrote a very long. So did you?
I'm obsessive about the customer experience.
Yeah.
Part of why I got into firewood is I like going current, counter-cultural.
Yeah.
And try and think of something other than firewood that hadn't been disrupted. Before Apple, there was BlackBerry. Before Liquid Death, there was Dasani.
Right.
Before Yeti, there was Coleman and Arctic. And but before Cutting Edge Firewood,
not many things. Well, I'm pleased that you joined us. You guys do a lot of really smart stuff. So you have
Thank you so much.
text messaging right before it's going to be a cold weekend, like there's, hey, you need any firewood? Like you do a really good job with that. And the other thing that you do, you talked about kind of the three things earlier. A friend of mine talks about companies that surprise and delight.
Yes.
And
under promise, over deliver.
Yeah, surprise and delight. Like, is there something? Because then people talk about it. They're like, I can't believe I did this thing, and then this thing showed up.
Raving fans, as Chick-fil-A used to say.
Yes, raving fans. So I appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to Made in Atlanta. This is a special series brought to you by Small Biz Club. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. I was joined today by Leroy Hite with Cutting Edge Firewood. And if you haven't bought some Cutting Edge Firewood, you need to. It is like the best. And it's amazing. It's really, really good. So until next time, thanks for tuning in.